The second day of Labour Party conference began much the same way as the first, with difficult questions for the leader.
Does your team lack human decency, Mr Corbyn?
That's the accusation made by one of Jeremy Corbyn's key aides, who has announced he's resigning. That and deep divides in shadow cabinet over Brexit, leaving some to question how much longer this leader has left.
Mr Corbyn, does your team lack human decency? How long are you going to stay in post, Mr Corbyn?
He insists he's going nowhere.
I'm taking the party into the general elections. I'm taking the party into general election to end austerity, to bring forward policies that bring about a better standard of living and better opportunities for people all across this country.
He might be leading that election campaign, but the man in black behind him, Andrew Fisher, doesn't think he can win it, apparently. This from the key advisor who wrote the last election manifesto. According to the Sunday Times, Mr Fisher resigned last Saturday declaring, "I no longer have faith, we will succeed." In a memo leaked to the paper, he accused the leader's team of a lack of professionalism, competence and human decency, and said he was tired of their blizzard of lies and excuses. Damning words Andrew Fisher did not want to talk about when we caught up with him today.
Mr Fisher, do you still think that your colleagues lack human decency? Do you still have any faith in the party? Do you have faith that Jeremy Corbyn can win an election? That memo looked pretty damning. It looked like it was written for public consumption. You said you're fed up with the blizzard of lies. Have you spoken to your colleagues about it?
Labour say Mr Fisher will stay in post until the end of the year and resign to spend more time with his family. But his departure is seen as a blow to Jeremy Corbyn. Another blow, according to some, the survival of this man. Yesterday, Deputy Leader Tom Watson narrowly avoided having his job abolished.
The simple truth is, whatever anyone says, that Labour is a Remain party.
But the party's leadership disagree with him and Emily Thornberry. They want to win a general election, renegotiate with the EU, and then decide whether to campaign for Leave or for Remain.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Hello, Mr McCluskey.
Hello.
Shadow cabinet members need to toe the line or resign, said this union grandee today.
One thing's for certain, Labour has to take a message into the general election that is united, and everyone in the leadership should unite around
And
that.
if her view is different to what the party decides, can she stay in post?
I'm hoping that her position will be to support, as she always has.
This is all-out warfare with the leadership, isn't it?
Yeah, Jeremy and I are both Democrats. We both made it clear that we're both Democrats, and it's for the members to decide what our policy is.
Len McCluskey says that anyone who's not in line with leadership needs to be out of their post.
Well, as Deputy Leader of the party, my message to Len and everyone else is let the delegates at this conference have their debate. Let's all contribute to it, and let's try and unite around the decision that they make this week.
I'm working, don't disturb me.
Jeremy Corbyn's conference so far has been overshadowed by divisions and departure. The picture he wants to paint is of a party united, but over the next 24 hours, the Brexit debate will be front and centre of this conference, and that unity could be tested to its limits.
Well, now, if the talk in the conference cafes and bars was on the conflict in the leadership and divisions on Brexit, inside the main hall, Labour has been keen to focus on actual policies, on health and on education. Our political correspondent Liz Bates is with me here. Liz, there's been a fair bit of chaos today, but have there been key announcements?
Yes, amid the discussion of internal rows and resignations, we've also heard some policy announcements here today at Labour conference. We've heard from Shadow Health Secretary John Ashworth. He says that Labour in government would scrap NHS prescription charges in England, so bringing England into line with Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, where prescriptions are already free. That's an expensive policy, potentially, but it will probably go down quite well here with Labour members. We've also heard from Shadow Education Secretary Angela Rayner. She has been saying that Labour would abolish the schools inspectorate, Ofsted. She made that announcement today on the conference floor. Here she is speaking earlier today.
We will scrap Ofsted. Schools will no longer be reduced to a one-word grade or subjected to a system that hounds our teachers from the classroom.
Do these actual policies really mean much?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because obviously when you hear from opposition parties, they tend to have a wish list of things that they would like to do in government, but they aren't in government. But with Parliament in the fragile state that it's in at the moment, we're expecting a general election at any moment, months, certainly probably in the next year. And so we need to know what the Labour Party would do if it was in government. On the other hand, when you make policy announcements as a political party, for those announcements to feel credible, you have to come across as a united, competent party that can deliver those promises, a government in waiting, shall we say. And I think with everything that's been going on with the Labour Party this week, they maybe have a bit more work to do on that.
Liz Bates, thank you very much indeed. Well, here behind me is Angela Rayner, who is the Shadow Education Secretary, as we mentioned earlier. Now, first of all, the chaos. We'll come to the policies in a moment. But
are you talking about Boris Johnson and the Tories?
Well, that'll do. But I think in this case, we're actually dealing with what's going on here. And I mean, to lose Andrew Fisher, who's a very key person writing the manifesto, all the rest of it, and with what he says, class war, dysfunctionality, political failings inside the leader's office.
Well, I don't think we've lost him, because I've certainly heard from him today. He's around still at the moment.
But he's resigned, you know that.
He's leaving the Labour, he's leaving the front bench politics that he's been involved in, at the cutting edge.
With
After
a
he's
very
been there,
critical statement.
He's been there for 4 years, and, we all have our bad days where we want, kick the can around. But
So he's
I think
just had a bad day.
I think that Andrew's done a fantastic job for the Labour Party, and we've got some fantastic policies like the one that we've talked about on GPs and appointments, and my policy announcements on Ofsted. Actually, we want to create a fairer system across the country, and that's what we're focused on at the party.
I'll come to your policies in just a moment, but you've lost a key individual who's made deep criticisms of the leadership in particular, the leadership's office in particular, dysfunctionality.
Well, staff do leave sometimes, and they return, and people do move on in work.
No, that's not what's happened. What we have here is a key figure who has resigned at disgust over I don't want to read all these things out, but the 4 issues that he has complained about.
Well, all I know is that Andrew has been a superb member of the team at the top, and I've had fantastic work environment with him. He's been working with me on the National Education Service from the start, and I can only say that it's been a fantastic working relationship, and we've really progressed and moved things forward.
But we wouldn't be talking about him now on the very first day of the Labour conference, or the key day of the Labour conference, and we're having to talk about a resignation of somebody deeply respected by people like you, but who has to cast great criticism on what's going on in the leader's office.
Well, from what I know is that Andrew obviously has got a young family. I know he's been at the cutting edge of how we've developed the Labour Party in what has been, shall we say, some very hectic political times for the last 4 years. As someone who's got a young family myself, I know exactly how stressful that can be at times. But I know that Andrew has been a fantastic part of the Labour team. He continues at this moment to be a fantastic part of the Labour team. He hasn't left in disgust. He's here, he's supporting us, and I think he's a fantastic member of our team, and he's doing a great job, and I wish him all the best in his future.
Let's talk specifically about your policies. Getting rid of private schools. What exactly will that entail? Merely do it with tax cash, take away their VAT and all the rest of it, or will you close them down?
Well, we can't carry on with a 2-tier education system at the moment. We know from the evidence that actually the private schools take more than their fair share of the top jobs at the moment. We need a fairer system. We make no bones about we want a comprehensive education, national education service.
But
and I don't want any
to abolish them altogether.
And
do you agree with that?
I don't want any state money going into private schools propping up what is a privilege for the 7% of the population.
But
so
what
we
about
will
the
look
vote
at the
in
charitable
conference,
status.
get rid of them altogether?
Yeah, and I can understand the conference motion and respect that, and actually we want to see one integrated national education service, and that's what we're going to create in Labour. I'm going to create a system that everyone is going to have confidence with. But specifically, we are not going to fund private schools anymore with taxpayers' money.
Are you going to close down Eton? How about that?
Well, I'm going to tax it first, I can tell you that. I've certainly, John has announced that we'll make sure we take away the charitable status. They shouldn't get relief on business rates. And we also announced that we'd take the VAT exemption away from these schools because it'll pay for, redistribution across the whole of our national education system. They can't keep having that privilege.
Right. Well, now, Emily Thornberry, John McDonnell, Tom Watson, all saying they want a Remain policy from the Labour Party. What's your policy on Brexit?
Well, our policy on Brexit is that we want to negotiate a deal.
They've declared theirs.
And then
What's
we
yours?
want to put that back to the people. Well, I'm here to talk about what Labour's policy is, and I don't think it's not of interest what I want to do.
Okay,
It's of
so
interest
what
what
will the Labour
we are
policy
going
be?
to do as a Labour Party. We've said that we want to negotiate a deal, and we put that deal back to the people because we want to bring the country together. And I think that's the responsible way forward.
about
We're not
Remain?
like the Lib Dems that just
You
want to
know that
ignore a vote
many of your
and go off a
members
hard
are
Brexit.
Remainers. Many of your members are Remainers. What about them?
Well, many of our country Remainers and people who want to leave as well, and we've got to respect that. We can't just dismiss, like the Lib Dems want to, those people that voted in that referendum. The best way going forward, we believe, is to try and negotiate a deal. We've not been given the opportunity to do that. Put that back to the people with Remain and with the deal that's on hand from the Labour Party.